It's been some time since I've been talking about prophetic events and future events and world events. And so much has happened and so much material has been put together that I decided, after praying, that I have to come out and to share what is happening behind the scenes. Most of you are reading American newspapers and watching television and so on. If you live in the United States, where you're watching your own television networks and you read your own papers. I do not trust the media per se. And many, many years ago, I realized that if I wanted to be informed, I needed to be hooked up to the Jewish media in America and also in Israel. And so over the years, I have built up a system where I am plugged in to probably 10 to 15 different sources. And these are Jewish sources. And I realized this, that they will inform their own people. So the Jewish people in America will be informed, but we will not have that information given to the general public. And the information now that is being sent out to the American Jewish community and also to the community in Israel is that war pretty much is just around the corner between Israel and Iran. And the first salvo will be shot by Israel. And once the fuse has been lit and they exploded, then the United States will be dragged in and a number of other countries. I'm going to do just a very short historical background so that you understand where things are coming from and why they're happening. The Middle East, as we know it today, used to be part of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. And Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire, lined up with Germany in World War I. And when Germany lost World War I, the Ottoman Empire also lost, and the Middle East was carved up. France got Lebanon and Syria. The British took Egypt, Palestine, and what is today Iraq. And Iran became an American interest zone together with Saudi Arabia, that also became under the American umbrella. There was a lot of intrigues going on after 1945, and a lot of coups, murders, and so on. And eventually, the different nations shook off the British, the French, and the Americans, and they became independent. They thought. Because of oil, a lot of interest, France, England, and the United States never gave up their interest in the Middle East. During the 1950s, particularly in what is today Iran, used to be called Persia, the United States used the CIA and American military power, and we put in the Pahlavi family, and they had the title of the Shah of Iran. And so Iran was an American client state from approximately 1945 up to 1978, when there was a revolution. Khomeini came in, took power, became an Islamic republic, and the Americans were kicked out. And we then had a hostility from Iran. You remember they took the embassy, United States Embassy, and held it for about 300 days. United States then shifted gears and simply said, we lost Iran and we moved our assets over to Iraq, Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein then became simply a puppet for the United States. And the CIA, American military, began to pour into Iraq. And we asked Saddam Hussein, when I said we, the United States asked Saddam Hussein to attack Iran and to take out Khomeini. That was a war that lasted 8 years. And Russia, China, North Korea aided Iran. And of course, we backed up Saddam Hussein. And the weapons of mass destruction that you heard later on before the war with Iraq was actually furnished by the United States. We, the CIA and the American military, furnished Saddam Hussein with the different chemical weapons, which he used against the Iranians. But Saddam could not win, Iranians could not win, and so after 8 years, they simply said they would end the war, and nothing had changed except millions of people had been killed, and a lot of money had been wasted. Of course, the people that provided arms were very rich. Now, Saddam had been a client of the CIA. And he now turned his attention to Kuwait, because Kuwait used to be part of Iraq before it was split off by the British and the Americans. And so he was encouraged by the American authorities that we were not, if he attacked and took Kuwait, America will not intervene. This is a setup because now the CIA had decided that Saddam Hussein had to be taken out. That was the first Gulf War. And of course, we did not take Iraq, we just drove them out of Kuwait, and that ended the first Gulf War. In the meantime, now we had Al-Qaeda, and let me talk about bin Laden. Bin Laden used to be on the payroll of the CIA. From about 1979 up to the late 1980s, the CIA furnished bin Laden and his network in Afghanistan with weapons, Stinger missiles, finances, and all kind of things, because they had a proxy war against the Soviet Union. And in those days, they were not called the Taliban, they were called the Mujahideen, or Freedom Fighters. And Ronald Reagan was very proud of his Afghan freedom fighters. Well, in the late 1980s, the Soviets decided they had enough, and they simply decided we're going to exit Afghanistan. And so now the CIA simply said, okay, we're not going to spend any more money. And bin Laden and his fighters were hung out to dry, and they had no more income. And after warring for 10 years in Afghanistan, the countryside, the infrastructure destroyed, the United States simply said this: we have no interest in Afghanistan. We couldn't care less what you do. We just wanted to defeat the Russians. We beat the Russians. We're out of here. Good luck. Do whatever you can, but don't expect any money. Well, that made bin Laden very upset together with his staff, and they now begin to call the United States the Big Satan. You've got to understand, if you're an American, you've got to understand that our intelligence services and our military, we have been involved for more than 100 years in many different wars around the world. And there's one thing that people outside the United States knows and believes: you cannot trust America. 1 year we would support this dictator, 1 year we would uphold this group. We change policies, now we are opposed to them, and we turn on them, and so on. And basically, America is under the thumb of a world government. And because of that, our policy is simply insane. It is not in the American interest or in the interest of other people. It's in the interest of the world government. So now we got Al-Qaeda, and with the weapons, the training grounds, and everything else set up in Afghanistan, they begin to build a terrorist network to get at the big Satan, the United States. And all of you know the first blow-up of the World Trade Center in 92, 93. And then the 2001, when they flew in and they took down the 2 Twin Towers and a few other buildings and so on. Now, Iraq had nothing to do with that. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. Matter of fact, they were fighting Al-Qaeda themselves. But the world government simply said this: we need to clip the wings of the Iraqis because they are threatening Israel. The result, the United States went to war with Iraq, coalition, they told it. And of course, they never found any weapons of mass destruction. And we made a mess of Iraq. We finally got out after 10 years. And the country today is actually just in a total shambles. Then we invaded Afghanistan. Actually, we invaded Afghanistan first, started bombing up there and invaded them. So we had 2 wars going now that actually drained the United States. And then now American troops out of Iraq. And if you look now upon the power in the Middle East, here's a lineup. Egypt, no military might. Their Air Force, Navy, Army, very weak, devastated by the uprising. Plus, they have American-made equipment. And when the United States have an arms sale, you got to understand that you have spare parts. And any time there's a conflict, the United States cut off the spare parts and the ammunition, and they might have sold them F-16s and all kind of fancy weapons, but if they don't have the spare parts, they don't have the repair capacity, they don't have ammunition, it's useless. So Egypt is out. Libya was simply neutralized last year. Gaddafi's gone. His army, Air Force, Navy, gone, neutralized. The other countries you have, Algeria and Morocco, on the Mediterranean area, southern part of the Mediterranean, they have no military might whatsoever, so there's no threat. Now, what's left? Saudi Arabia is in the American hands. Iran has weapons, equipment. They want badly to get nuclear weapons. Syria is a Russian client state. Syria had a top Air Force, strong Navy, and a fairly decisive armed forces with tanks, artillery, and so on. They also have chemical weapons. Guess what? The uprising in Syria is not spontaneous. if you thought that. That uprising, the people are rising up because they are fed up. They're fed up with Assad. But who is giving them the weapons? Who is giving them the training, the ammunition? The good old CIA, the MI5, the MI16. We have French intelligence. We have a lot of mercenaries working out of Turkey and out of Jordan. Jordan is in the hand of the Israelis. Turkey is a NATO nation. There's only 2 states in the Middle East that is capable of fighting Israel: Syria and Iran. Now, Syria, as we speak, are being eliminated. It's just a matter of time before Assad regime is going to fall, and we're going to have chaos in Syria, and that country is neutralized. Now, the Islamic leaders in Iran know that if they have a nuclear weapon, and they are jihadists, they are fundamental, they are Shiites, they will, even if they know that half of Iran's population will be killed, they will go, and if they have a nuclear bomb, they will take out Israel. That's what they want to do. They are fanatics. The government in Israel and the world government knows this. And they know this that they have to neutralize Iran. Currently, Iran has thousands of troops in Syria that are trying to back up that regime. And they do know this. Without a nuclear weapon, they are no match for the Americans and the Israelis. Let me share with you now the reports that be coming into me from Jewish sources. And this is information that came in to me on July 13th, 2012. The U.S. Navy has deployed small underwater drones capable of destroying sea mines to the Persian Gulf. According to the report, deployment of a German-made device known as Seafox is part of an American military buildup aimed at stopping Iran from closing the strategic Strait of Hormuz. That's where the oil goes through. The first drones began arriving in recent weeks as the latest round of negotiations with Iran over its nuclear development program appeared to have stalled. On Saturday, a U.S. Navy ship that had been slated for decommissioning was sent instead to the Gulf to help mine-clearing operations, and the U.S. Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, said it is the latest move in a gradual U.S. buildup as tension with Iran smoldered. 4 U.S. minesweepers arrived in the Gulf last month to bolster the Fifth Fleet and ensure the safety of shipping routes in waterway through which 40% of the world's seaborne oil exports flow. Now, this is a report that was found in New York Times. Very few people read that. The Jews read it, and they pick it up. The United States had quietly moved significant military reinforcement into the Persian Gulf to deter the Iranian military from any possible attempt to shut the Strait of Hormuz, and to increase the number of fighter jets capable of striking deep into Iran if the standoff over its nuclear program escalates. Iran continues to secretly enrich uranium amid a report that it is pushing forward its nuclear weapons program, while the diplomatic talks to thwart Iran's program and stop preemptive Israeli airstrike have so far failed. With the increasing its military force in the Persian Gulf, and Iran's foreign minister openly warning that if sanctions are fully enforced, his nation will close the Strait of Hormuz and choke off 1/5 of the world's oil supply, many are asking, Is a war with Iran imminent? On Thursday, July 17, there's going to be a briefing by Newsmax, which has another organization called Lignit. And these actually are Zionistic organization. And they're going to simply be talking about the next move in the Middle East. And they will have a special video, and they will interview the former top intelligence expert, including former CIA Director, General Michael Hayden. So that is going to take place tomorrow, as far as I'm speaking now, on July 16th. This is from a briefing paper that is prepared for all Jewish organizations in America. I get this one 6 days a week. Saturday, there's no report, but 6 days a report. Now, U.S. is concerned as Syria moves chemical stockpiles. Syria begin moving parts of its vast arsenal of chemical weapons out of storage facilities, U.S. officials said. How do we know that? Satellites. Syria's stockpiles of sarin nerve agent, mustard gas, and cyanide have long worried U.S. officials. Where did they buy that? They bought it from the United States. Some U.S. officials fear Damascus intends to use the weapons against the rebels or civilians, but other officials said Assad may be trying to safeguard the material from his opponents, or to complicate Western powers' effort to track the weapons. Remember, before the Iraq War, Saddam Hussein moved a lot of his assets around. The Syrians are doing the same thing. They know what is coming. If we believe the Assad regime and their closer allies view this as an existential struggle, we have to assume they could use chemical weapons against the population at some time in the conflict. And this is spoken by Joseph Holliday, a former Army intelligence officer and an analyst at the Institute for the Study of War. This could set the precedent of weapons of mass destruction being used under our watch, and other U.S. officials said. This is incredibly dangerous to our national security. Now, when you read this, they simply now begin to prepare the Jewish people. War is coming. We simply have a cause, and be prepared. Let's talk about Russia right now. Despite press report this week that Moscow may be backing away from Syrian President Assad for his brutal crackdown against regime opponents, Russian officials seem as determined as ever to continue to back the Syrian government, as evidenced by the refusal to cut off all arms shipments and an upcoming visit by Russian warship to Syria. Russia's policies seem to be hardening on Syria, making it impossible for the United States and allies to put any meaningful pressure on the Assad regime as long as they limit themselves to working through the United Nations. What does all this mean? It simply means this. Russia is upset. Vladimir Putin is upset. The Chinese are upset. They are being aced out, and they begin to recognize that they are aced out of the Middle East. The last nation in the Middle East, actually the two last nations in the Middle East that they have as a client state are Syria and Iran. And that is about to change. On July 15th, 2012, the England's intelligence chief warns Iran closing on bomb, predicts Israeli attack. The head of Britain's intelligence service warned that Iran would acquire a nuclear weapon by 2014 as the latest, and predicted a military strike may be the only way to prevent such a calamity. Sir John Sars, head of Britain's MI6, told a group of civil servants Friday that Iran is on the path to acquiring a weapon and predicted Israel will act to stop her. The Iranians are determined going down a path to master all aspects of nuclear weapons, all the technology they need. And Sawyer said Israel likely would strike Iran before she acquires such a weapon, which he said could happen by 2014. Previously, Israeli intelligence sources have suggested that Iran may acquire the bomb or the ability to make one quickly sometime this year. It is equally clear that Israel and the United States would face huge dangers if Iran were to become a nuclear weapon state. Sawyer said that the MI6 played a key role in covert operation that stopped Iran from creating a nuclear weapon as early as 2008. In the past 2 years, 4 key Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated. Iran has blamed Israel, Britain, and the United States for the killings, and they are correct. Our intelligence services simply took them out. These are murky waters. You got to understand now that the Iranian leadership, which is a Shiite, hardcore Muslim sect, they rather die than be defeated. They are just like the Japanese in 1945, where they sent out the kamikaze bombers. And the Shiites are the ones that are producing the suicide bombers. They are very well aware of that unless they get a nuclear weapon, they will be destroyed because of sanctions. Let me read the final report that came in to me just today, July 16th. And this came in from the network in the United States to inform all Jewish organizations. WikiLeaks revealed in new documents that during the last June, thousands of Iran's Revolutionary Guards and Lebanese Hezbollah members were fighting in Syria in support of Assad's regime. In a letter leaked from the 4-star for Strategic Information Analysis Center, Iranian armed individuals and Hezbollah militants are said to have implemented prompt execution warrants against Syrian soldiers who refused to shoot at demonstrators. A source inside Hezbollah is quoted as saying that there are 3,000 members of the Iranian military and 2,000 Hezbollah fighters, 300 from them from the Shiite Amal movement in Syria. Now, the battle here is heating up. Let me now give you just a little bit more information before I close this segment. Probably about 10 to 15 years ago, Israel wanted to acquire submarines. I have not been able to verify who paid for these submarines, but they have, a year ago, they had 3 operational submarines with several more on the way. These are built at German shipyards, and these are diesel-powered submarines. But they are of the highest technology, and they are equipped with rocket tubes to launch missiles. Right now, for the last 4 to 5 years, Israel has been doing exactly the same thing as the United States. They always have 1 to 2 submarines at sea, fully loaded with nuclear weapons on these submarines. These submarines are not in the Mediterranean. They are in the Indian Ocean, just south of the Persian Gulf. And if things go bad, they can launch in less than a couple of minutes at least 40 to 50 warheads of nuclear bombs that will strike different targets in Iran. Iran will be obliterated. Does the American Navy know this? Of course they know. And they are protecting these Israeli submarines. Furthermore, there are nuclear weapons on board Israeli fighters, fighter bombers. And with Syria neutralized, Iraq does not really have an air force. Jordan is not fighting. It is very easy for the Israelis to simply send a number of airplanes over into Iran and start the bombing runs. If the Iranians start raining missiles on Israel, you can rest assured that those submarines will fire their missiles. Tehran will no longer exist. All the places in Iran that are any value would simply be bombed back to Stone Age. That's the scenario, what they got set up. When's it going to happen? I don't like what I hear. I don't like these reports. They are too accurate. They are coming too close together. And I have a feeling that it might happen within the next 2 to 3 months. If it does, the world situation will change the way you and I know it. This will be when Israel takes total control of the Middle East and simply will subdue all the Arab nations. According to the Bible, it's going to be an Antichrist. He's going to root out of Israel. He's going to be Jewish. He's going to run the world government. And I see this from a prophetic biblical viewpoint as the beginning stage for the Antichrist system to take control of the Middle East. Once they have control of that, they control the oil. And then they can begin the choking of the rest of the world. I have written a number of books on the world government. And if you've been watching and listening to me today, and you says, well, I sure would like to know more about the world government. I would like to know the inner workings. I have written a series of books called the Kabbalah books. And in the Kabbalah books, we have 5 that are ready right now. I'm working on the 6th one. And number 6 will be out probably in another couple of months. I will take you for the beginning of the Kabbalah going back about 5,000 years. And I will trace up to our time who it is, what they done, what they plan to do. Go to our website and simply look up the Kabbalah books and order your set today, and you will be super surprised. If you want to have some free material, I have a number of sermons and series that I've been preaching on Israel, the end times and so on. Just go to our website and you will find it there. In closing, let me say this. Am I afraid? No. I am born again, washed in the blood, saved by grace, and Jesus holding my hand. We know it's going to be turbulent times in the end times. But you also know this, God is in control. If you are not saved, if you do not know Jesus, your Lord and Savior, today is a day to get to know Him. You might say, well, how do I get saved? It's very simple. Just begin to confess that you're a sinner. And there's not one of us that will say, well, I'm not sinned. I have not sinned. Ask God for forgiveness. And then say, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I believe He died on the cross. He rose on the third day. And I believe that He died for my sins. Father God, forgive me of my sins and cleanse me. And I pray right now, Lord, Jesus, come into my life. Come on in, Jesus, and be my Lord and Savior. And He will. And you get saved right there where you are. Call us, write us. I got some material I want to send you. And let us know about the decision you made for Christ. May God richly bless you, is my prayer.